Hey guys, Anthony here from the Best Gear Anywhere podcast with a little disclaimer. As I'm editing this episode, I realized that there's basically going to be no intro or very little of an intro. The reason for that is the intro is thrown off its groove, so to speak, because we had just been discussing a very shocking news story that had happened. It's nothing that you would probably know about unless you are someone who watches Twitch. If you do watch live streams on Twitch, then you definitely heard about it. We're not going to go into detail about it here. It's not related to MASH or the podcast. I just wanted to explain why the episode might start very abruptly. Other than that, I hope you enjoy the episode, and we'll catch you in the next one. Yeah, I don't know how much of the last 5 minutes is going to stay in the episode because, again, just there's weird energy going into this episode.
What headlines will come out before this episode goes live? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Anyway,
we thrive on weird energy. Let's go with this flow. And
well, before we get into the episode proper of MASH, I will mention we're at the halfway point of the first season.
The halfway point. Wow.
We are at the halfway point. There are roughly 24 episodes per season, whether or not you count the 1 hour season intros for some of the seasons as one episode or two. I'll leave that up to you. But we're halfway through the first season, and I'm just going to say this right now. Starting with this episode, Dear Dad, the next 6 episodes are like a roller coaster ride of just interesting episodes. Not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. The next 6 episodes are just vastly different from each other, and it's going to be interesting to talk about. Including, it has one of my top 3 least favorite episodes and one of my top 3 best episodes ever of the show. It's so weird.
Oh, damn.
So, yeah. But without further ado and weird energies, let's talk about Season 1, Episode 12, Dear Dad, written by Larry Gelbart, directed by Gene Reynolds. So the two kind of showrunners for the show are directing and writing this one. This aired on, I forgot to write down the air date, December 17th, 1972, which is appropriate because this is our first Christmas episode of MASH. Yay.
Yay.
And as such, we are watching it in mid-October.
Well, I feel like that's close enough that we won't get lynched, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we just chose a weekend to start recording this podcast and decided to do it every other weekend since. And it just kind of, now that we're doing it, I'm like, we could have planned this better, but oh well. So yeah. Dear Dad, the first episode that launches one of the better tropes in the series, in my opinion. They do several letter home style episodes that are narrated and kind of show you the day in the life. And I think it is a fantastic way to kind of tell little side stories that you can't really devote a whole episode to. It's excellent. In fact, one of the little notes I found about this episode was on the fan wiki page Monster Mash, where I kind of check each episode to see if there's little nuggets of information that I had not come across. And one of them was allegedly, Larry Gelbart's wife had mentioned to him that she thought that there could be a little more day in the life type stories, you know, that an episode could be dedicated to more than one story, that there was enough interesting characters and stuff going on that they could kind of flesh out episodes. And I'm going to say it, she was right, because this episode is fantastic.
Absolutely.
So we open on Hawkeye bundled up because it is winter in Korea, drinking a martini and writing his dad in Vermont, which is something that won't stay true forever. They change where Hawkeye is from, I think, twice before they finally settle on Maine. But for now, it's Vermont. What do you guys think? Going into this, what did you guys think of the letter home format? Because I know we got a kind of a glimpse of that in the pilot. It opens on kind of a letter home format, but what did you guys think of an episode being dedicated in that style?
So this is one of the episodes that I have watched before. This is one of the ones that we have in our DVD collection at home here. So I've seen this episode before. It's just been a while. I really like the format. Just much more. It's a much different format, but it also seems to work with the show a lot better. You're just following one character as they narrate and go about their day. And yes, I like this format quite a bit.
Yeah, this is one of... Oh, go ahead, Ethan.
Oh, no, I just first watched through, because this is my first watch through of this episode. I thought it was going to be kind of a weird one-off gag that they wouldn't continue the whole way, but I fell in with it pretty quick, and I'm glad I did because it turned out to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I think this is another one of those things where what other scenario could a letter home style episode work? Like, the setting of the show allows them to do this format. Like, you couldn't do a Friends episode where they're writing a letter. A character is writing a letter to who? You could, but it's not, especially in today's TV, who's sitting down and writing letters to someone? Like, this is one of those episode plots, or rather styles, that lends itself to the setting of the show, I think.
Well, then fine. I guess I just won't mail you my letter.
Okay. You're talking to me now. That's the beauty of living in 2022. I don't have to write, "Dearest Ethaniel, how are you there in the land of corn and wheat?" You know, I don't know.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Wow. Okay. So Hawkeye's writing home explaining that OR has been hectic, 70 hours of surgery, but Christmas is upon them, as it is back in the States. Again, I think each OR scene we gets a little bit more intense. They're slowly easing us into what will eventually be kind of the standard OR scene. Like this one, we have multiple doctors working on patients. They're a lot more. They're getting in there more, if that makes sense. There's a lot more tools being used. There's a lot more ambient sounds of surgery going on. It's just something I've noticed as we've been watching through. The surgeries are starting to get a little more
surgery.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, surgery. Because like the pilot and the one to market where they just leave a dude on the table with his socks on. Like it's slowly getting more and more like, oh, we are in a surgical suite, not just another set piece, so to speak, for stuff to happen. We see that the camp is getting ready for Christmas. Father Mokay is setting up a nativity. There's Christmas music playing over the loudspeakers. And Hawkeye says that despite being, in a war zone, there's still an effort to try to make things, a little cheerful, a little more home-like. But for better or worse, it sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. We learned that Radar is piece by piece mailing a Jeep home. For what reasons, we do not know.
But
he is. Low key, here's a little secret about me. I would love any vehicle that is newer than, the 90s. However, I would consider, if someone said, here is a 1940s or 50s era Willys Jeep in good running condition with the rain cover, I would be tempted to make it my daily driver. I don't want to think about how much gas mileage a U.S. military Jeep gets. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. I would love to own a Willys Jeep. And if that's Radar's goal by mailing one home, then I support this fully, even though his packaging skills are absolute trash and scare me.
Well, at the end of the day, if you're putting a vehicle of any kind through the mail, I think that deserves some recognition. There's the old wives' tales of the high school senior prank being you take apart the principal's car and reassemble it in his living room. But
how? First of all, how do you do that?
You know what? A lot of PBR and determination.
All right, then.
Hi, Best Care Anywhere podcast does not support underage drinking. I beat your legal team to it.
You're just a hair faster than me. Good job, Wilson.
Dang.
Keep up the good work.
I do love, you mentioned it in the beginning, I do love the line of, if Radar tells his mailman what he had delivered for him, that he had delivered a whole Jeep, he will have a retroactive hernia, which is a terrifying concept if it could really happen. Jared, you seem confused by a retroactive hernia. Were you annoyed at Wilson, or were you confused at the term retroactive hernia?
A little column A, a little column B.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, obviously, a hernia, meaning you have, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe a hernia is when you overstrain your core muscles, causing a tear in your abdominal lining or your abdominal wall.
I believe so, yes.
Thus allowing your intestinals to go places they shouldn't.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to leave it
Precisely.
right there.
Free them intestinals.
Nope, we are not freeing the intestines. Do not.
Ooh.
And retroactive obviously being after the fact. So the concept of the mere thought of I have carried an entire Jeep would cause him to have an immediate hernia. I'm glad is not a real thing that could happen.
Yes.
Because the thought of a hernia genuinely terrifies me. Remember,
As it should.
Remember, folks, this is your tip of the day. Lift with your legs.
And twist.
No. I mean, lift and twist with the legs only. Do not lift with your back and twist. Do not lift with your groin and twist. Lift with the legs.
Lift with your neck and twist. Got it.
All right. Anyway, in this episode, there are several wonderful one-liners, both from our characters and the PA system. The first of which is, due to the number of people bored last Sunday, this Sunday will be canceled, which I love. I love all the little
PA announcements this episode are on point. They are all
This is
good.
why we could never have had a PA system at camp, because my dumb ass
we
would
do.
be in.
It's just not. We're just not using it.
If they install a PA system in the forest but never use it, does it really exist?
I mean, I used it once.
Once, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's going to stop me?
Anyway. So Hawkeye heads to the mess tent. He's talking about how everyone's just kind of getting on with Army life, and part of Army life is the monthly lecture, and this might be the best scene in the episode, comedy-wise, because this is the first of Henry Blake's lectures on sex that we get. And is... Spoiler alert, there may or may not be more lectures on sex from Colonel Blake.
Oh boy. I can't wait.
I love how uncomfortable he is at giving this lecture.
He is visibly uncomfortable. He wants to be anywhere but right where he is.
This reminds me of whatever poor soul each year has to get up in front of the staff and lead the no havey relationship at camp conversation. Mm-hmm. Just like, hey, no,
none of that.
I love it. Cut the jokes. I want to get right down to the sex. And it's like, Henry, you really need to slow your roll and think about the words coming out of your lips. And this is just a great how do I word this? Something that is touted repeatedly on MASH, both by the actors and the writers, is there was no ad-libbing. You did not ad-lib on MASH, which is hard to believe, because this scene in particular feels like they set the cast in the room, gave McLean Stevenson kind of a rough idea of, you're giving a lecture on sex, you're very nervous, here are some of the lines we want you to deliver, and just let everyone else kind of freely riff. Because I love Hawkeye and Trapper, I love Frank and Margaret, I love Gary Burghoff just like staring and like, yeah. And yes, more information.
What, Colonel? What did they do?
I genuinely love this scene. I think it's the right balance of comedy and kind of that sense of that we're getting more of like, this whole war army, why are we here thing is ridiculous. Like, why are we having a lecture on sex in a mess tent 3 miles from the front? Like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to quote all of Henry's lines in this scene, but they're just go back and watch it, audience, because they are just perfect. We cut back to the mess tent where Hawkeye is leaving, and one of the other favorite gags in this episode of mine is he meets a nurse when he enters the mess tent, and she asks, "Oh, our date's at 8?" And he asks, "Our date's at 8?" And she says, "Ooh, gotta make it 9." He's like, "No problem." As he's leaving the mess tent, another nurse asks him, "Are we still on for 10?" And he says, "Make it 11." I love that he's having to like manage his date calendar.
His date schedule.
His date schedule. 2 in one evening.
You know,
Love
the
it.
other thing about this scene and really this episode that makes me so genuinely uncomfortable is because I know that it's trying to be a Christmas winter episode, and I know that the winters in South Korea are cold and dry, but I look at this and all I see is Los Angeles just west of the Grapevine in prime summer shooting season, and all these poor extras and main characters going around in 4 layers trying not to die
Oh,
of heat stroke.
100% this is being filmed in the middle of summer.
Yeah,
And they're trying to like wipe away the sweat when the cameras aren't rolling.
I will say though, it's obvious that it's being filmed in the summer just by how bright everything is, but in this episode and as they go later into the series, they do a decent job of trying to make it look wintry. Like they've obviously wetted the ground so it looks like it's rained recently. There's puddles. The thing that always gets me that I notice in like the winter episodes is they do a good job to make sure like the wind is rustling constantly and there's a little bit of haze from all the wood stoves. Like yes, it's still very painfully obviously summer, but they do enough to kind of veil that.
They try to sell it
just enough that my suspension of disbelief can hold. But yeah, that's something I have always noticed in the winter episodes, and they do get better at making it more wintry feeling as the series goes on. But we get another one of my favorite PA announcement gags. In fact, I think I have done this as an announcement once or twice on Saturdays for morning announcements, the gag ones. The following personnel have signed up for this afternoon's 10-mile physical fitness hike. And then the music restarts. I love that. And Hawkeye stops and is like, "Who the hell is going hiking?" And he just kind of sits there waiting. And he's like, "Huh." And he goes into the tent.
Right. Yeah.
I love that so much. And that's another thing I'll point out. And it's more obvious a little later in the episode. One of the things that, how do I explain this? One of the things I don't know how to word this. One of my favorite things in pieces of media is the little things that you add to kind of set everything together. Like, imagine you're arranging like tchotchkes in a shadow box, and then you're going to pour clear acrylic to create kind of like this display piece. I like the little elements in movies and TV that kind of act as that acrylic. It's like we have all this stuff going on, but here's this constant thing that's kind of anchoring everything in the setting. And for me in this episode, it's the Christmas music playing constantly. Because it's not overbearingly loud, except in one scene, and I think it's important that it is. But it's just kind of always there, like, yeah, they're trying to make it festive, and I think that really kind of like, it's like putting this nice little coating of varnish over the whole episode, kind of setting it in the setting. I don't know. It ties it all together for me that this Christmas music is constant throughout all the different little vignettes and scenes we're getting. I don't know if that any of those analogies made any sense, but I love
Yeah.
I love
it helps
little
tie things
details
together.
like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then we get a little bit of a deeper scene. Things get a little bit more serious. Yeah.
Wait, which scene is this?
With Klinger.
Oh, there is something I want to talk about before we get to Klinger.
Well, yes, it's the leading up to Klinger. Yes.
Hang on. They give us a little bit of Trapper. They flesh out Trapper a little bit. Oh my god!
Little pizzazz of Trapper in there. Yeah,
which is good because here's the thing: we've been subtly hinting at it for a while now. Trapper will eventually leave the show. Not anytime soon. We still get a lot of time with Trapper, but one of the failings of the show, I think, is they don't do enough to expand him as a character separate of Hawkeye. And this is an attempt. They tried. They didn't do a good enough job. And this is one of their attempts at trying. They make him kind of this. He works well with the kids. He's very open to working with the kids and the locals. Yes, he cheats, but he does have 2 daughters and a wife at home, and he does have a connection to that. And I love that they give him these scenes with the kids because it gives him a little more depth for an episode that he features in primarily later on down, I think next season. I want to say it's a season 2 episode, but I like that they flesh Trapper out, that he's not only super enthused and ready to work with the local kids, but also with the local villagers. Like I think Hawkeye says, they know to come to Trapper when they need help, with whatever it is. In this case, it's delivering a cow, for which the doctor received 1 gallon of mother's milk.
Seems like fair compensation.
Fair compensation. Fresh milk in a war zone? I think yes. But I love that they did give Trapper at least a little bit of this fleshing out, like, because he's kind of a cynic. And we're gonna see that at the penultimate. I think it's the penultimate episode, the penultimate, second to last episode of this season. He's very cynical, but he also has a big heart, and I like that they show us that a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of big organs, Klinger and his large proboscis. Let's move on to him.
What?
Proboscis. Nose.
Elaborate.
His big nose.
Oh,
nose.
Oh. Is that really a term for it?
Proboscis.
It is now.
Big nose.
Learn
Don't make
something
me
new every
Google
day.
words.
That's right.
Yeah,
We get
proboscis.
more Father Mulcahy.
Hang on. Proboscis, the nose of a mammal, especially when it is long and mobile, such as the trunk of an elephant or the snout of a tapir. So yes, proboscis. That's your vocabulary word for the day. You get a vocabulary word and a health and safety tip. Don't lift with your legs and proboscis.
Honestly, we have it all. Why listen? Why listen to a different podcast?
Hang on. We need to hit the trifecta. Is California on fire?
Hold on. Let me check.
A little less.
Is CaliforniaOnFire.com. Yes, it is still on fire.
Good. All right. We've covered all our bases. We have is California on fire, a vocabulary word, and a health and safety tip. Good. Anyway, so yes, we get the wonderful scene. I say wonderful. It's a little weird, but I still think it's an overall good scene. We get a scene with Klinger, Frank, and Father Mulcahy, and it starts with Frank coming in to take over the post-op shift from Hawkeye. I love that he comes in and says, "I'm here to relieve you," and Hawkeye just kind of glances over and says, "You do resemble an enema," and goes back to writing on his notebook. Any chance to make fun of people in a sly medical way is thumbs up from me. Father Mulcahy is trying to decorate the post-op with popcorn, and all I can think, anytime I see this scene, all I can think of is, do you want ants? Because that's how you get ants.
Korean ants, no less.
Korean ants. Have you guys ever decorated with popcorn? Where did this start? Because I've seen this in movies and TV.
No, because I'm not a savage.
I did it one time in my weird little Kansas Christian school, and then never again.
Do you know how long it takes to string popcorn on string?
I do. It's not fun. You also poke yourself with the needle often.
You know what's a lot easier?
I'm sorry, I'm sitting here
Not
giggling
doing
quietly to
anything else.
myself.
Anything else.
I'm sitting here giggling quietly to myself. It's like, of course, in Kansas Christian school, they spent their Christmases stringing corn.
You leave me alone, you son of a bitch.
Oh my god. It's corn. All right.
It has the knobs.
Anyway.
He still doesn't know what that is.
No, he doesn't. So Frank takes over for Hawkeye. Hawkeye leaves. And we get Klinger. And this is the second time, I believe. I don't think we've seen Klinger since Chief Surgeon Who, where we meet him with General Barker, and he's dressed as a whack, and then he's naked at the end.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, that was the last time he was here.
Yep.
In a major speaking role. Yes.
So yeah, he's here for his second time. He's not wearing a dress, but he
looks fairly average.
Yep, and he gets into an altercation with Frank over his bandana. Frank knocks at the stuff that he was
Frank
trying
gets
to
physical.
Frank gets physical, which Frank, I need you to take a leadership class because yes, are you technically correct? Absolutely. You did not handle this appropriately.
Not the popcorn. Oh, the popcorn's going everywhere. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
there
popcorn's
goes the
going
patient's broken leg. Oh,
Yeah,
oh no.
they're just tumbling over patients.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and they. So yeah, Frank and Claire get into an altercation over the bandana. William Christopher's Father Mulcahy tries to break it up. He gets the wind knocked out of him at some point, and eventually Frank gets knocked out. He tells Klinger to run because obviously the MPs are going to get called, and he diffuses the situation and asks the MP to let him handle it himself. And I love the little line Father Mulcahy has with the MP.
Oh, it's
like,
so great.
I love, but Father, I'm not even Catholic. And Father Mulcahy just goes, "Would you like to be?"
Would you like to be?
Well, hold on. You're forgetting a quality line, which is, of course, please, sir, he's exhausted. All right, where's the
Who
guy that
exhausted him?
exhausted him?
Where's the fella that exhausted him? I love that line so much. Yeah. So, and then we get Father Mulcahy tries to go find Klinger to calm him down, and Klinger is coming back to the post stop with
Now,
a
hold on.
lie.
Okay.
Hold
on. When he's exiting the post stop, do you notice what he does with all the popcorn? He strews it. It just gets strewn across the floor as he's putting on his jacket. He throws it everywhere. It just because like there's popcorn everywhere now. There's going to be so many Korean ants all over the post stop.
Yes, but to be fair, he is dealing with more important matters. He realizes Klinger's on
a mission. And he looks
Klinger is angry and probably going to do something foolish, which I would say bringing a live grenade into the post stop and wanting to detonate it.
First of all, where'd he get that?
Well, okay. Here's the thing that's always confusing about MASH. It is a military post. There are armed infantry. Like
it is. They're there somewhere. Yes.
Technically, Klinger is one of them. Because they never really make this clear, but there are armed sentries, security. There are infantry attached to the hospital for the purposes of one, running the hospital and manning, the mess tent and all the other stuff. But they are presumably infantry. Klinger, you'll see Klinger on guard duty. You'll see a bunch of the other soldiers on guard duty. Like they are infantry.
I just can't help but picture Klinger just walking up toward them, just going, "I need to borrow your grenade. I'll give it back. Don't worry. I just need to borrow your grenade." And it's like, where'd my man just pull a grenade from?
Yeah, I guess it's less about do they have grenades. It's like where do they keep them and who allowed Klinger to get one? Like that's
who
the
gave
more
this man
question.
a grenade?
Well, I have to imagine that when you're someone like Klinger who has been waiting for any opportunity to get kicked out, you kind of squirrel some things away, maybe dresses, maybe stilettos, maybe a live fucking hand grenade.
So here's the question, because I'm just going to read this comment now. We got a comment from a Carrie Ahern on Instagram about this episode. One of the things that they mention is it's a little weird to see Klinger so serious / menacing, because this isn't really his.
This isn't Klinger's normal shtick. Yeah.
I think one of two things happened in this episode. They were either writing him as kind of like the tough city kid that got angry, or they were writing him as someone who is, why can't I think of the character's name? The pilot in A-Team, whatever his name is. He's the one that's kind of got a screw loose a little bit. He's a little wild and crazy. I can't think of his name because there's Mr. T, Hannibal, and the other two guys. Murdoch. Murdoch's one of the other. I can't remember the pilot, but the pilot was always kind of, especially in the more recent movie from a decade ago now. They played the pilot off as kind of wild and crazy and has a screw loose.
Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdoch.
Okay, so Murdoch is the pilot, and I don't know the third guy. But I think maybe they wrote Klinger this episode to be crazy, not outright crazy, like he couldn't get into the army, but not perfectly sane. Like this isn't Klinger who is acting crazy to get out. This is a Klinger who maybe can be prompt, like under the right circumstances, he kind of cracks a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they were still trying to figure out exactly what Klinger's MO is.
Well,
But
just to take a little aside, I it's really important to me personally to point out that this is some A-list 10 out of 10 acting on Jamie Farr's part especially.
Jamie Farr is really good in the scene, but also this is a good Father Mulcahy scene. I think this scene in particular is one that would make sense when you say that, oh, by the way, these two characters and actors become full-time regulars by the end of the show or by halfway through the series. Because this is an excellent little back and forth between them of Klinger's angry and he's threatening to go kill Major Burns and kill Father Mulcahy, and Father Mulcahy understands that he doesn't mean any of this. He's just like Father Mulcahy says, we're tired. He's tired. I'm tired. You're tired. We're all tired.
You're tired too?
This is one of those, this is Thursday, week 5 at camp. You just have cracked and something that wouldn't have been a big deal. I think I said this in one of the other episodes. Something that isn't a big deal is because you're 5 weeks, little sleep. Just something was the last straw that broke the camel's back, and you're not really angry. You're just exhausted, but can't do anything about it.
That's what's getting me so much about Jamie Farr in this scene. That confidence is stride up, with the clear anger in his eyes, and then the spin on the heel and the outstretched arms. Just the physical acting in it is just perfect. Just so relatable. Maybe not with a live grenade, but certainly something I think we've all seen before.
And pivoting to Father Mulcahy and William Christopher, this is a good setup for the reoccurring theme with Father Mulcahy is he's a priest in a place that both desperately needs and desperately, I don't want to say doesn't need, but desperately needs a priest, but maybe not in the way that he is expecting or is trained to as a man of the cloth. He's almost always seen as the character who is moral support, keeping morale up. But, and you can see that in him doing, the decorations, and he's going to sing a song at the Glee Club, and he's not really seen as a true religious figure because a lot of the people in camp, Hawkeye, Henry, all those guys, aren't really religious in that sense, but they respect him immensely because he is this constant source of good cheer and level-headedness, and he gets a lot of episodes throughout the series where he has a chance to kind of develop that, and both develop that and wrestle with the fact that he is a priest in a place that is not particularly spiritual or religious, and there are going to be episodes that kind of I think, in fact, in one of the other Dear Dad episodes we're going to watch later in the series, he basically goes to Hawkeye and says, I feel useless. You guys are the surgeons. I'm just here, wetting sponges and, giving words of comfort that ultimately mean nothing. And William Christopher, both of them, William Christopher and Jamie Farr, have some amazing moments later in the series. And I think this scene is the start of that. So I'll get off my William Christopher soapbox now. I have an immense respect for the actor and his character because I grew up with my grandmother who is very Catholic, and something about Father Mulcahy reminds me of her, and I love it very much. But anyway, I'll stop now. I'll stop talking about what Father Mulcahy.
I do like having more of him in this episode, though. It fits very well. It fits well in the theme of the episode.
Yeah. And another thing I'll mention about just the scene as a whole is as the AB shot, fun fact, again, don't quote me on it, I believe that is what it's called when you have one camera looking at one actor in dialogue and another camera looking at the other actor, and they flop back and forth through the conversation. I do believe that's called an AB shot. Don't quote me on that. I am not a
No,
cinematographer.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
As they're going back and forth between them talking, I love that in the background you can see people, like the one guy comes out of post office, sees what's happening, and goes right back
And he
in.
just
You see
immediately
people-
runs back in. He like freezes and just runs back in.
You see two guys come around the corner and immediately run back the other way. I just love that as people are starting to figure out what's going on. I love that they're like, oh shit, don't go that way. But no, it's a great scene. I love that Father Mulcahy is able to, again, even though he's not particularly spiritual, as Hawkeye says in his letter to his dad, he does not envy him this parish. This is a very hard place to be a priest, but at the same time, someone like him is very much needed. So, yeah, wonderful scene. After that, we get, what do we have after that? I actually don't remember. Oh, we get Hawkeye's talking about, oh, hang on. It's happened twice now, and I failed to mention it. I love that almost every little side story we get, we see Radar either in the background or walking through the shot carrying a chunk of a Jeep. Like in this shot, he's carrying like the rear fender. In a previous shot, he was carrying the windshield. I love that was set up and you just get these little bits of it.
He's just in the back, slowly moving that Jeep. We get yet another PA announcement. Attention all personnel. When filling out your GI insurance forms, be sure to state your age and sex at the time of your last birthday. Which, I don't know what to say that. I just love the little lines that they give the PA announcer. Little quips they have.
Age,
Hawkeye.
got a few. Sex, when I can.
Okay. Hawkeye talks about the nurses in a way only Hawkeye can. He touts them as being fantastic at their work, but also very lovely. He says, I try to keep the morale up, but I only have two hands, which is Hawkeye. Oh, Hawkeye.
Okay.
Hawkeye.
That leads into him talking about Major Houlihan, who he also speaks very highly of, but mentions that she seems to be a paradox because he senses that she is very passionate, but also very guarded because she's a professional military woman, which is interesting because that's gonna get unpacked later in the series. But for now, she is Phase 1 Margaret Houlihan, who is enamored with one Frank Burns, and we haven't had a good Frank Hot Lips canoodling in a while, so here we go. Hot Lips and Frank have a date, and Hawkeye says it's very obvious because they can tell when Frank is getting all gussied up. He's putting on cologne to go out and stretch his legs. Yes, I'm sure there will be many forms of stretching, Frank. But Hawkeye mentions that they knew that they were going to have a date, so while they were out picking berries or whatever, they visited their tent or Margaret's tent, and oh boy, did they plan some stuff. You can see Margaret getting ready for the date. Frank sneaks in. He gives Margaret 3 guesses. She guesses Albert Schweitzer. Oh, who did she guess? Albert Schweitzer, Clark Gable, and General MacArthur. And Frank says, right, all 3 times, which is just...
Oh, Frank.
Frank.
You can see, if you're actually paying attention, you can see that you can see the diagonal cut in the pole already.
Yep, the pole's diagonal. It's not straight.
Yeah, you can also, not just the pole's leaning, you can see the prop department's cut for when Frank has to knock it out later.
Yeah.
And the little pin, it looks like a pin or a nail holding it in place.
Yeah, and he like grabs it and it's like he's afraid he's actually going to bump it and have it fall over.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can also tell the candle's a little funky, but I don't, whether it's intentional or not, I love that they allow the audience to, if it's intentional, I love that they allow the audience to notice those things and be like, oh no. But
Frank.
And I love that they have the moment of did you hear that peace talks might be starting. Don't even think it. Because it would mean
Don't
they
even
have to
think it. Yeah.
Sometimes
Frank.
foreshadowing is rather obvious.
Oh, yes. I mean, the Korean War did end eventually. That's not really foreshadowing.
Did it?
Well,
Did it though?
yeah,
Did
mean,
it?
well, yes, but actually no.
Well, yes, but actually no. Again, another tease for our future Korean War history episode, our bonus episode, which I genuinely do want to start looking at because I've learned even more details I didn't know before about the Korean War. It's like it will be an episode we do. But Frank goes to blow out the candle. He keeps relighting. They go to sit on the bed, and the bed breaks. There's pudding in the pillow, and the pièce de résistance. The pole has been cut through, so when Frank swings his arm and knocks it down, the entire tent collapses on them, which is chef's kiss.
The piece de résistance.
Yes. And I love that there's like that comedic moment where the tent doesn't fall and it's just, oh, Frank! And it collapses. I love it so much. And while you hear them struggling and hear the tent collapsing, you pan back to Hawkeye and Trapper all snug in their beds, just, good night, Trap.
Yes.
Good night, Hawk. And just as the scene fades out, you just hear Margaret and Frank screaming. It's great. And then we get the start of the ending of the show, basically. The Korean kids are coming to camp for a Christmas party where someone will be dressing as Santa. And I love that the PA announcement announces the party for the Korean orphans will be starting at 1400 hours. Santa Claus will be there. We can only hope he's sober. And as he says that, Hawkeye
just
walks
steps
out
with
drinking a martini.
Yeah, you're like, sometimes foreshadowing is obvious.
I love that he walks out, stops Major Houlihan and Burns, asks Frank to hold his martini, and then
commits a felony.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Does he though? Does he?
Does he,
I
though?
mean, look at Hot Lips afterwards. Like, I don't think she's mad.
This is the one part of the, because this happens once or twice where Margaret is like annoyed with a character, but then they plant a deep, passionate kiss on her, and she's all smitten.
Yeah,
I'm fine, Frank. Fine. That man's a beast, an animal. Yeah, he is. Like,
it's okay.
Margaret, cool
Hot
your
Lips,
jets.
She just needs that post-nut clarity, and then she'll be back to her regular
Please.
self.
Oh God.
You can't look. Is there a better way to put that? I'm right.
Yeah, I hate that you're
This
right.
has been another episode of Insights into the Feminine with Jasky.
No. Oh no.
That was the first and last instance of that.
Bullshit.
Friends, viewers, angry women, please remember that I'm the one who manages social media. Be nice. Be nice
Please be
when you
nice.
send your complaints. I will
Please
forward them on.
preface any complaints by saying that they are for Wilson and Wilson alone. And then we will send them only to him.
Or Jared alone.
Whoa. What did I do? I've never said anything controversial.
Okay. So Hawkeye is dressing as Santa. He has his big bag of toys, but they're stopped by Henry.
In a rush.
Because there is an infantry squad pinned down and with a chest wound, and Hawkeye is the most proficient, they say, chest cutter, someone who is familiar with working in the chest cavity.
It's an excellent callback to, I believe, earlier in the season where they're discussing, who's more specialized at what. And I think they mention that either Hawkeye's more specialized in the chest area or the Trapper's more specialized in like the brain area.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's a callback to a previous moment in the series. I'm pretty sure.
The moment you're thinking of is in Chief Surgeon Who. It's a great McLean, Stevenson, and Larry Linville scene where they're arguing in his office. We talked about this scene for a bit. And he says, Pierce is qualified in chest and general surgery. Face it, Pierce is the better doctor. So yeah, Hawkeye is a chest surgeon. But also general knowledge surgeon.
A good surgeon. Yes.
Yes. So Hawkeye, because he is more qualified and has the better chance of saving this corporal, gets flown to the battlefield in his Santa suit because there's no time to change. It is now. We're going now.
Now or never.
And I love that as they've obviously dug this foxhole. They've got the extras in the foxhole as the soldiers. And I love that in the middle of this staged firefight, they have them keep looking back like, what the actual hell is happening behind us?
Holy cow. Yeah.
And I love that you said there was no such thing as Santa Claus. And I'm going to stop. We're going to go off on a little tangent here real quick. That actor that said, and you said there was no Santa Claus, that actor is a man named William Catt, who has a very interesting almost claim to fame.
Really? Almost.
He has almost claim to fame. And I'll explain what I mean by that. He was in a lot of TV and TV movies. This is his only appearance in MASH as he's just called PFC. He's not even named. But he goes on and he's in episodes of Kojak, an episode of Gunsmoke, Perry Mason, all the way up through into the 2000s. And even recently, he's been in some stuff. Not anything we would know necessarily. But in the 70s, he auditioned for a movie. He auditioned for the role of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars.
No shit.
Really?
So during the Star Wars auditions, he auditioned for the part of Luke, and the way the auditions worked is they'd pair you with someone who is auditioning for Han Solo. Do you want to take a guess who he got paired with as someone who is auditioning for Han Solo? So him as Luke, who do you think was Han Solo?
Alan Alda?
Jesus Christ! Now that's a Star Wars I want to see.
Yeah, no kidding.
No. Alan
That would have
Alda
been.
Jesus
That would have been a. That would have been a time. Yeah.
Wow, that would have hurt my brain. No, it was this actor William Catt as Luke auditioning and reading lines with Kurt Russell as Han Solo. Yeah, I want you to imagine that version of Star Wars for a minute.
Huh.
It's a
Yeah, I'd like the
beautiful
Alan
world.
Alda as yeah, I like that way better.
You don't.
Huh.
I don't think Kurt Russell would have been a bad Han Solo.
No, I just feel like Alan Alda would have played a much more fun Han Solo. I think it would have been good. It just would have been a lot more.
Can you imagine some of
Hawkeye.
the Hawkeye nurse puns, but on Princess Leia?
Oh God.
Oh God. See, I feel like Alan Alda and Carrie Fisher would have been great on screen together.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, how do we get off on this channel? He never even auditioned. But no, he was almost. There is a universe where we had this actor William Catt and Kurt Russell as a Luke and Han, and I just think that's insane. And for anyone out there wondering, like, why aren't you saying, giving us backstory on Kurt Russell? If you don't know who Kurt Russell is, and
It's time to find a new podcast.
It's time to find out who Kurt Russell is. For anyone who doesn't know, Kurt Russell is like the original Disney child star who did not get screwed up by it necessarily. I mean, probably did, but he is a prolific actor from like the early 60s all the way through to today. The recent things that we would know him from are the Marvel franchise as Ego, but he's been in more movies than I could possibly name, with the exception of one, because it is one of my favorite stories and it is pertinent to the three of us. He was Whitey in Follow Me Boys, one of my favorite movies. Not just because I was a Boy Scout, but it's a wonderful movie. So yeah, we almost had a William Catt, Kurt Russell Star Wars. So yeah, after that tangent, back to MASH. So Hawkeye is getting roped down to these soldiers.
He's dropping next to the foxhole.
Alan Alda dressed as Santa, army crawling to a foxhole is an image that is stuck in my mind. And Fairly so. This is another one of those episodes where the image of him being dropped dropped into the battlefield as Santa sticks out in my mind. But I always forget that this is a season 1 episode. That this had, like, damn, okay. That scene ends and we get the closing scene, the button scene, where Hawkeye is wrapping up his letter to his dad, wishing him Merry Christmas from everyone at MASH. And this is a nice mid-season kind of. I think we're on third or fourth pilot now that we've called episodes. This is a good mid-season introduction. They name all the characters with the actors' names on screen. You get, Trapper, Wayne Rogers is Trapper, McLean Stevens is Henry, Larry Linville is Frank. They run through the whole cast. I love that he calls the nurses the ladies of the ensemble.
As one does.
There is a line in there which is kind of, I don't want to say that it's like, whoa, it was a huge controversial, breaking down barriers line. I do love the kind of medium hot take in the early 70s of having your protagonist character call himself, quote, an unsuccessful draft dodger.
I didn't even think about that.
It's not like he stood up on a soapbox and said the draft is wrong, but it's also that little jab of yeah, dodging the draft would have been nice because this sucks in a time where draft dodgers were very much a topic of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, there's a story my dad tells where in the 90s, I don't remember what year specifically, but Bill Clinton very famously publicly pardoned anyone who was still wanted for dodging the draft for Vietnam. That report came over the radio in my grandpa's auto body shop, and my dad heard that report on the news, heard the radio in the office click off, and he said the story goes that he said my grandfather got up, turned the radio off, and went home. My grandpa never went home early, never, didn't go into work. Like, the fact that he was so angry that he got up, shut the radio off, and just went home in the middle of a work day, told my dad, like, he is immensely pissed. So yeah, that was a fun little family story. Another side note, my grandpa was a World War II veteran of the Pacific Theater. So,
oh, holy shit.
Yeah, understandable why a volunteer, no less, not a drafted.
That would do it.
So understandable why he would be upset that a bunch of draft dodgers got pardoned. But again, different time, different place, different lifestyle. So yeah.
Yeah. Very different wars too. So yeah.
This is the same grandfather who got angry for my dad for parking a Mitsubishi truck in front of his house.
Oh, that one. Okay, that explains a lot.
Not because, look, not because I'm not going to say my grandpa was or was not inherently racist. He fought in a war against a specific group of people, and because of that, he had opinions that were opinions that he had. But to quote my dad's retelling of the story, get this Japanese POS out from in front of my house. I didn't have them shooting at me for 4 years for you to park their truck in front of my house. Something to that effect. Which, makes it doesn't make sense for anyone to be that angry about it, but also I wasn't in a B-17 getting shot at by Mitsubishi fighters, so who am I to judge the man?
Okay, Grandpa.
I just love that.
Fine.
I just love that story so much. It's just such an angry old man story, and I love it. But anyway, all right. After multiple tangents, we have come to the end of Dear Dad.
Indeed, we have.
What are we feeling with this? This is a very different episode than we've had so far.
I feel like, and disclaimer, I have a very soft spot for Christmas specials and for holiday cheer in television and film. So just the fact that it's Christmassy themed, I'm already giving it like a +1. Like, it's already getting a boost.
And the thing about the Christmas theme, though, is there isn't like a big.
It's not aggressive. It's just nice.
Think about other Christmas episodes of shows, though. There's not like a big heartwarming message. There's not a big long lost sibling or brother or parent has come all the way for Christmas. Or there's no. We get kind of shanghaied away from the nice Christmassy ending for Hawkeye to go do surgery in a foxhole.
This feels exactly like how Christmas in July at camp always felt. You got the nice holiday cheer. It's not actually Christmas. You're actually, sitting in a cabin with snow falling and a warm cup of cocoa. But it's Christmas. You have that kind of joyful spirit. And, she's still a bit wrong. You still have to go take care of it. And, it's not all bad. Because you got it's a little Christmas time. Yeah. We also get Father Mulcahy, big plus. We get Klinger, big plus. A little bit of Frank, not too much Frank.
The right amount of Frank.
The right amount of Frank.
If there is such a thing.
The right amount of Frank and Hot Lips. I think we also got a decent amount of Trapper. I'm happy with that. And then Hawkeye being fairly chill throughout most of the episode, which I'm also okay with, leading to my rating of 5.5 out of 5.
Hang on, stop. No, you can't give it more than 5. That's not how the system works.
I make the system now.
Look at me. That's not.
I am the system now.
I can't give it more than 5. That's not how it works.
Wilson, what are you going to rate this episode?
You know what?
Yeah, Wilson, what are your thoughts about this episode?
I'm going to go ahead and parrot a lot of what Jasky said, because honestly, a lot of deja vu here that just really hit me in the feels. And also, as I got on my own soapbox about earlier, the acting in this particular episode was just top notch. And it did a great job of humanizing a lot of characters. It's just a very human episode at the end of the day. And because of that, I am going to go ahead and give it a 6 out of 5.
What, guys?
I am screwing with you. 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of 5. Okay. Yeah, I can't begin to reiterate, like you said, Ethan. I think, Jared, you nailed it on the head. I think this is much like Chief Surgeon Who. This is a great, instead of General Barker going around and encountering our cast one by one, Hawkeye's kind of narrating to us about them one by one. And we get these nice little stories. I love that Christmas was very much at the forefront of the setting, but it wasn't necessarily the plot. I think that is kind of a different vibe for a Christmas episode than you see a lot of TV shows do. There's like a whole 1 hour Christmas special, whereas this is just, we're kind of making Christmas up because we're in a war zone, but we're not going to ignore the fact that it's Christmas at the same time. So, I'm going to give this, again, I've said this before, having the knowledge of all things that to come, I do grade a little bit on a curve. This is an excellent episode. I'm going to give it a 4.8. I think it does everything well. It is one of my personal favorites, but I do not think it is one of the best episodes of MASH. It is certainly up there, but the fact that I'm giving this episode a 4.8 should be hope that despite how great this episode is, there are episodes I think are even better. So 4.8 is where I'm going to stand on it. And with that, we come to our favorite segment of the show, the end. No, I'm kidding. The audience. The audience ratings. So from the Twitterverse, Donut Eater 111 says gives it a 5 out of 5. A great mix of comedy styles through each thread, smartly written wordplay, slapstick, bizarre visual gags, and a little bit of dark humor. Love the human moments too, like Hawkeye's description of the OR, Trapper and the calf, Mulcahy's empathetic moment with Klinger. I'm not sure about this now, given the strong competition, but there was a long time where he would cite this as his favorite comedic episode of the show. So yeah, 5 out of
okay,
5 out of
okay.
5 from Donut Eater.
All right.
Chad
Okay.
Smith gives it a 4.5. 4.5 buckets of fresh milk. Santa descending from the chopper is iconic. Trapper's interaction with the
Excellent, Chad.
Yes. Trapper's interactions with the locals show the potential his character had, but it's another low point in Margaret's "Oh Frank" phase before the writers had really figured her out. That is true. We're still in phase.
We're still in the "Oh Frank." And
yeah,
swooning.
we're still in the phase 1 of Margaret.
Margaret has not evolved to the next larval stage yet. She is still hot lips.
She is still the hot lips pupa, if we will.
Yes.
Man, having someone who knows biology in a podcast is weird. All right.
It is.
Cheese Smash Forever gives it a 5 out of 5. This is truly one of probably the top 10 MASH episodes of all time. The formula works so good with someone being able to introduce or tell the story of a day in the life of the 4077th. Alan Alda does a wonderful job of laying out what this will look like moving forward. This episode could and should be the episode that hooked people during the first season. I don't disagree with that. Because I think we said Chief Surgeon Who was one that should hook people. This episode absolutely is one that should hook people as well. Our friend, This Lightsaber Kills Fascists. Great episode. The first Christmas episode of the series, and one that gives us a kind of, quote, later season episode filtered through early season sensibilities and characters. I appreciate expanding Trapper and Father Mulcahy's characters, but you can tell it's still early days with Klinger's harsher personality. Although MASH would go on to do many more Christmas episodes, the end of this one really hits for me. It's a later season theme filtered through early season sensibilities, less preachy and maudlin, yet still effective. 5 martini olives out of 5.
Excellent.
He did add an additional tweet saying he didn't initially mention it, but Frank and Margaret scenes, while funny, still show the lack of growth those two characters had. Margaret's character would evolve, but the small scenes of Trapper's emerging personality were never followed up on appropriately or effectively. Yeah. It's funny that a character who's not fleshed out at all ends up becoming very well fleshed out, and a character that they started to flesh out, they kind of go nowhere with. So, yeah. And I just saw, I have to share this. I may cut it out of the episode, but I see a news article as I'm looking through these. It says, Cartoon Network executive confirms it's not dead. It's just, quote, turning 30.
Yep, I saw that. Yeah, we're not dead. We're just turning 30. Oh, Cartoon Network.
What's the difference?
So yeah, that is Dear Dad, one of the best episodes of the series by many accounts.
So far.
So far. Are there any other thoughts about this episode before we get to the closing out?
Gallon of fresh milk.
Gallons of fresh milk. Well,
drink your milk, kids.
If you are interested in leaving your comments about the episode, you can find us on Twitter at bestcare4077, Facebook Best Care Anywhere Podcast, Instagram The Best Care Anywhere Podcast, email if you want to send us your doctoral thesis, poems, soliloquies, or otherwise about MASH. Whether that be your rating of an episode, or if you want to point out something we missed or maybe didn't cover to your satisfaction, or questions you have, or points you want to bring up, send those to bestcareanywherepod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Next up on the hit parade of episodes is Edwina.
Oh
boy.
Oh.
I may need to acquire alcohol for that episode. And I'll leave it at that. We'll stay tuned next week, folks.
All right. I'll get the lukewarm Tito's. All right. Okay.
Yeah, the lukewarm Tito's. And with that, everyone, have a wonderful day. Wait, what day is this? Will it be Halloween yet? I don't remember.
No, not quite. It won't be quite Halloween.
I think we record on Halloween weekend.
Day before Halloween, yes.
We record the day before Halloween, which means this episode will be the last episode before Halloween, so happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Yeah.
And don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Huh. Do you have a
With
list
that,
or?
it's kind of vague. You're trying to be helpful, or just trying to
Well, we know one.
say
We know
cool
we know
things?
one thing. We know one thing you shouldn't do. Don't handle explosives. And with that, folks, have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
The time has come for us to say sayonara. My heart will always be yours for eternity.